What's your life worth? I want you to look in the mirror and ask yourself, man, what is my life worth? Is it worth $500 a week? Is it worth $2,000 in a day? Or are you priceless? Today, we're going to get into part 2 about my life, man, what it was like when I left that prison, right? I left that state prison and thought I had a plan, but really all I was doing was paving that way for that 40-year sentence. Let me ask you another question. You ever been in a position, man, where someone had a gun to your head and they're like, yo, man, run your pockets? You ever been in a position where your next choice has to be your best choice? I want today's video to kind of be a teachable moment, right? Because I had 2 options. I was walking out of prison. I had an option to get out here and get my life together. No more state parole, no more nothing. Either I get my life together or I could take this path over here and start hustling and, chasing a dream that really ain't a dream. Really, all I was doing was throwing bricks at the penitentiary. I was just working my way there, and it didn't take long. And when I look back on things in hindsight now, I'm like, damn, I did all that stuff in 14 months. Seemed like I was out here for 10 years. But really, I was only out here for 14 months. I did 2 years in the state, get out, not out, a year, end up catching a violation, do 22 months, parole's over with, and now I think I'm free. Big drug dealer, right? Guess what I got out of prison with? Not much, about $5 grand that I had left with my lawyer, Tom Cucuzzi. He's now passed away. I get out of prison, I don't have a car, I don't have a place to live, but I'm this big drug dealer, right? So I get out of prison and I make a choice, man, because I've been plotting out my choices. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get out here. I'm going to buy this. I'm going to turn this into this. And then I'm going to get this business going. And then I'm going to get this other business going. And then I'm all done, man. Then I'm all done with the drug game. I'm going to be legit. I'm going to find a nice girl. I'm going to get my life together. A lot of us that grow up like that in the hood, you grow up poor, you do have these dreams, right? You have these aspirations. And I think you're chasing these dreams and these aspirations because of the loneliness and the depression, man. The life that you live, the poverty and being, man, pretty much fucked up. You don't want to be messed up, right? You really do want some good things in life. You might have an aunt or an uncle or an auntie over here that they got their life together and you're like, damn, man, I want to live like them someday. But you don't see the bigger picture. You don't understand when you're young that they got that shit from working and making investments with the money that they earned and saving a little money. And that's why they're living that life. And we think, man, this is all we know. All I know is how to hustle. I don't know how to do shit else. I just know how to sell drugs, man. Been doing this shit since I was 13, 14 years old. This is all I know. And this is my get-rich scheme, right? My get-rich scheme is, buying a deuce and bagging it up. How ridiculous is that? And that's where it all starts, man. I walk out of jail with that couple dollars. I got enough money to get a 62, a scale, some bags, and some clothes, man. And I'm hustling off my mother's front porch on Sherman Street. That's where my hustle starts at. I buy that 62, I bag it up, never really thinking about my mom. Remember how they kicked my door in and they laid my mother down at gunpoint? I'm not thinking about my mom. I'm just thinking about, man, I got to get this money and I got nowhere else to go. And this is what my plan is. So I go out there, man, I start hustling. I get that deuce, I bag up some big ass bags. I'm out there giving out samples. Yo, this is where I'm at. See some of the old customers, what we used to call back then, the old fiends, right? Disrespectful of us to, talk about people the way that we did or treat people the way that we did. But I didn't care about them in the moment. I cared about me. This is where we're at. I'm on my mother's front porch. And, of course, I told my mother all the lies. No, I'm going to do the right thing, Mom. I got you. I'm going to do the right thing. And then it's not long before she realizes what I'm doing, right? I think it was a pager back then. Cell phones weren't really popping yet, right? Remember when they started giving out like them free phones, the little, flip ones or whatever? Phones weren't really popping yet. It was still off the pager. So I'm telling people, yeah, man, just page me, man. I'm going to meet you at the corner. I don't really want my mom to know that I'm back out here selling drugs. But she finds out in no time. And then it's really irrelevant. Well, Mom, this is what I am. You always knew I was a drug dealer, man. It's what I do. And she's like, man, you're doing this shit from my house. And, the pressure starts to be put on me. I'm like, don't worry about it. Don't worry. I got you. So I flip that deuce, right? And I'm like, man, I need to rent an apartment. Because I've been through the stuff where, people that are addicts, man, they always want to rent out their house, right? Man, give me 2 bags a day. You can sell out of my house. Next thing you know, they smoke them 2 bags. They're like, yo, man, I need 2 more. Or you can't stay here, man. They even start threatening to call the police on you. So now you need your own house, man. Luck would have it that right kitty corner from my mother's house, there's a house for rent. And I've been doing this before. I go to, Staples or whatever. I get the little rental agreement for the gas and electric. I pay the I pay the landlord. I take the thing down there, man. I sign that shit in someone else's name, so the gas and electric ain't in my name. And back then, man, you could rent an apartment, man. You didn't even need an ID in Rochester to rent an apartment. All you had to do was have that security deposit. So I got the security deposit. I get the rent. We hit the VOA, the Volunteers of America, buy some bullshit furniture, put it in the house, buy a TV from someone that just stole it from Walmart, put the TV in there, right? And now I go find one of my old homeboys. I'm like, yo, look, man, what's up? You trying to get a couple dollars, man? Yeah, I'm definitely trying to get a couple dollars. My boy E, may he rest in peace, man. He's the one kid that he went to trial in my case, and he gets acquitted on a couple of counts and gets a hung jury, and he ends up walking away free. And me, on the other hand, I end up with a 40-year sentence. But anyway, I get E, and we start hustling, right? Now, E was my man, for years, right? I had met E when I ended up in a kid's home. He became, I got a big tattoo on my side for E. Became one of my best friends in life. And I remember back in the day, man, when we were first hustling, sitting in my mother's driveway, man, selling drugs from a Pontiac Sunfire, 2, 3 in the morning, talking about our lives, man, and how fucked up our lives were, and how he didn't really have a father, and I didn't have a father. That's what we do to our kids when we're not involved, when we're not fathers. And we sit up, man, and I just remember being depressed, man, sitting in the car, dirty, been hustling all day, selling drugs, making people think that, drug dealers are glamorous life. Them dudes we looked up to, we thought were our role models, the dudes with the nice cars and the nice girls and selling drugs, man. Now I realize what their lives were really like, the people that I glamorized. Now I'm that dude that little kids are looking up to. Ain't that sad? And really, I'm sad inside. I'm lonely. I'm depressed. So anyway, man, me and E are back at it, man. They call it trapping, whatever you want to call it. We're out there hustling, giving out samples again. Now we got our own house, kitty corner from my mother's, man. Still bothers me to this day. We get the house bubbling. What I mean by bubbling is we got customers coming in now. We're making a couple dollars. And I remember, him and a couple of my other boys are like, yo, man, I'm going out tonight, man. You want to go out? You want to go to Chrome? You want to go to Tremors? I'm like, nah, man, I'm good, man. I can't spend no money right now because I'm trying to stack my bread. And I'm doing it, man. I'm stacking my bread. All my friends are going out, but they're hustling for what? They're flipping an ounce, flipping a half ounce, and they're spending the profit. Now, as long as they got the re-up money, they're good. They can buy an outfit, go to the club, and get some food, and they're back at square one. I wasn't living like that no more. I'm like, nah, I'm saving, hustling, and looking for the bigger flip, right? And that's what I did. Now we got this house bubbling, get another house on Dewey, and Kid Wody comes to me, right? He knows E and all them from Hag Street, and he's pretty much like, hey, look, man, I'm out here homeless. Now these are young dudes that are homeless that got no one, man. Wody came from Mississippi, and Wody ends up becoming one of my good friends, and some bad things happen. He ends up shot, and we're gonna get into that in a minute, and he also ends up on the stand at a three-week trial, and we're going to get into that. So anyway, man, Wody's like, yo, man, I'm homeless, man. I kind of, I need some help, man. So I put him in a spot, get another spot. He's over there hustling. Eventually, me and him end up having a physical confrontation because he's tapping the bags. What's tapping the bags? I'm giving him $20 bags to sell, and he's making them look like dimes. And what do you think happens? The customers call you, hey, man, these bags don't look like the way they're supposed to. What? So I show up, I check out the bags. I'm like, yo, man, what are you doing, man? And we end up in a physical confrontation. And this is like the 48 laws of power, right? Kind of apply this, man. I kick him out, bro. Man, get out of here, man. It's over with for you. 4 or 5 days later, man, he ain't got nowhere to go. He's pretty much sleeping outside on the porch at another friend's house. Man, I'm sorry for what I did, man. Please, man, take me back into the fold. And I do. I bring him back. Now he's hustling with this kid named Pi. They're on Dewey Avenue. We get a spot over there. And what do you think happens, man? These are the dudes that sit around, man. How many dudes have done this, man? I'm paying them, what, $500 a week? $500 a week? Are you serious? You taking a chance with going to prison for the rest of your life? Taking a chance of getting killed for $500 a week? Can you even believe that, man? What are you worth? Look in the mirror and ask yourself what you're worth. When you get up this morning or you get up tomorrow morning, if you decide to go out there and rob, you decide to go out there and hustle, look in the mirror and just ask yourself, are you worth more than what you're probably going to make today? Because there's also a possibility that you could be in prison for the rest of your life with what you're doing. You could be going out on a jukes, right? Going out on a robbery and you know what, man? Dude flexes. And now you're in danger and you pull the trigger. And now his life's over with. Now you're in a trial with no lawyer money, which don't even really matter a lot of times. No lawyer money. You pulled the trigger and you're facing 25 years to life. So think about that for a minute while we discuss, my life. So anyway, man, these cats are over there. They're at the house making $500 a week, man. They're on the chat line. They're in there playing Madden. This is their life. They're writing rhymes. They got the little keyboard in there, man. And they're dreaming of putting this rap album together that someday they're going to make it big, man. They're just hustling because they got to right now, man. But their ultimate goal is, man, getting signed, man. They got the illest lyrics and, yeah, all right, I hear you. They're in there. They're doing that, man. I remember dropping off a pack, 62. We bag it up, $4,400 back then. They call me within an hour. I get a call. Yo, what's up, man? Hey, come through. We need you. I'm like, damn, man. Of course your greed takes over. We need you. All right. No, something's wrong, man. Something's wrong. I felt it in my soul that something was wrong. I know they didn't sell all that in an hour and a half, or whatever it took, right? But my greed wanted me to take another pack over there. So I got a kid that's like my cousin, man. He's he's just a big dude, 6'3", 6'4", Teddy. For those that are watching that know Teddy, God bless Teddy. He passed away recently from diabetes. And he's got some mental health problems, man, but he's a big-ass dude, man, 350. I'm like, I'm going to send Teddy. He always likes to walk. It's not too far from my mother's house. A couple, maybe about 1.5 miles away. He likes to walk, so he walks down there. He gets to the house. These kids pull Teddy in at gunpoint. Boom, come in. Not my workers, not Wody and Pie. It's some dudes that are robbing the house. Kid named Doughboy. I don't know what happened with him, but we'll get into that in a second. They rob him. Hey, man, get in here at gunpoint. Ah, okay. And then what happens is they tell Teddy, they already got Pie and Wody naked. They're butt-ass naked. They had called me like, yo, man, call Chad. They knew who I was. They had intentions of probably robbing me, right? Tying me up, kidnapping me. Yo, take me to the house. I want everything you got. And then what do? You know what they do in the streets? A lot of times, man, they blow your brains out. So that could have been me that night, but something told me not to go. But my greed wouldn't prevent me from sending Teddy over there. I put Teddy in the line of fire. So Teddy goes over there. Now remember, these kids are on the chat line. They got a couple chicks there. And these dudes that are robbing them did some vicious, vicious things. You can only imagine when I tell you, hey, there was some chicks there from the chat line, what they did. So not only were they robbers, man, they were SOs, man. They were offenders, right? Teddy gets in there. They got him at gunpoint. They start telling him to take off his clothes. Now, I tell you, Teddy's mentally slow. He's got the mind and the mentality of a child, right? He's embarrassed. He's not taking off his clothes. He starts yelling and starts yelling and screaming, man. He opens the door. He don't care that they got a gun on him. He don't even realize, man, that these kids could, take his life. But while they got Wody and Pie pretty much hemmed up in the house, customers are still knocking at the door. And when the customers are coming, these dudes that are robbing them, they thought they were going to rob them for their drugs and money. They're still selling the drugs. They're selling drugs while they got these dudes hemmed up at gunpoint. Tell me that ain't crazy. So they're putting the money in their pocket, doing whatever they're doing. And what happens is they end up, Teddy ends up taking off from the house, calls me, yo, they robbed me. Now, once Teddy's in the street, he's yelling, he's calling me. Them kids run out of the house, they take off. We do a little investigation. We pretty much find out who they are. And there's a beef going on now. We know who they are. They know who we are. It takes a couple days, right, to kind of find out, like, who are these dudes? And we find out one of the kids' names is Doughboy. We find out from the customers, man. The customers tell us where they're at, where they live at. 2 blocks away, same street, Dewey Avenue, man. Dewey Avenue. We go over there. We find out who they are. We go through the subway, Salvador's parking lot. We got the AK with a 60-round clip, and we unload on their shit. Bah, 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 bah. This is all highlighted in my trial, so it's not like they can come back and charge us. This is what we did. Nobody's hit because nobody's in the house. But now they know, man, this shit just got real, right? Like these dudes ain't playing games, man. They came and unloaded 60 rounds on our house. So now what happens? You're in the street life. They're like, man, ain't no one going to disrespect us. These kids weren't even from our side of town. I think they were from the east side. But they ended up trying to get a spot on Dewey Avenue and hustle when really they weren't hustlers, man. They were stick-up kids, man. So their hustling didn't really work out very good, right? They'd rob you for your shit, open up a spot, sell it, and go blow the money out, in a week, in a day, whatever. So now, once we unload on them, we think, yeah, man, I don't know why we're thinking this. Like, man, it's all good, man. Them dudes, man, they ain't really about it. They know we mean business. They won't come back around. And then one night, I'm in the spot. I'm hanging out in this spot, kitty corner from my mother's house. We're over there playing Madden, because there used to be times, man, where, I had a nice little house, man, out in the cut. But I'd be sitting there with Jen. I'd be like, man, I got to get out of here, man. I had this urge, man, like I got to get out of this house. I'm depressed, man. I'm not sitting around here doing nothing, watching TV, watching The Voice, or what was it back then, American Idol? And my wife be watching when that was like the first season of The Bachelorette. I'm like, man, I'm not sitting around here watching The Bachelorette. And I go over to the house with them. I'm in the house, we're playing PlayStation, we're talking shit. And my man looks out the door, customer comes, he serves them, and he looks out the door, right? And he slams the door. He's like, yo, man, they're outside. I'm like, outside? It's supposed to click, right? The dudes that we unloaded on like 4 or 5 days ago, they're outside. They're here. They're looking for a beef. They don't knock on the door. I don't know if they were preparing, if they were just watching, and we got lucky and he's seen them. Maybe they were going to kick the door in. And if they kick the door in, man, we're probably all hit. Yeah, we got a couple firearms in the house, but we're probably all hit because the element of surprise will ruin your day. But he sees him, my boy D. God bless D, man. D ends up getting murdered too later on when I'm in prison. So me and Wody, we run upstairs, man. We know we got an AK upstairs and we got a gauge up in the bedroom. So I remember opening the curtain. I open up the curtain, boom, like I told you yesterday, man. I felt the glass hit me in the face. The glass hit me in the face before I ever heard the gunshot. Psh! And I hear Wody, ah, he's on the ground. I'm like, damn. And I'm like, in that moment, man, it was kind of like the Matrix. Everything's in slow motion. I'm like, damn, he's shot. And I'm wondering if I'm shot too. I take the gauge and I unload. Boom, boom, boom. But I'm trying to hide on the side of the wall and like shoot the gun down towards the road, right? I mean, the slugs are bouncing off the ground. These dudes run off into the night. They don't come into the house. But man, if they would have kicked in that door and came in that house, man, I might not be here telling you my story. And that's the same thing for you. You might be sitting in a spot. You might be working for someone. You might be the connect. But somebody's always plotting on you, man. There's always wolves out here, right? We weren't bothering these cats, but we were getting a couple dollars. And they were like, man, these white boys are getting money, man. We're about to go get that. This white boy thinks he's somebody, man. We're about to rob him, man. And most of the people on my team were black. Wody was black. We'll show some pictures. My boy E was mixed, man. He was Irish and Mexican. Crazy, right? Oh, my Irish-Mexican dude. I mean, this was one of my best friends in life. Dennis Spencer, D, man, God bless him. His father just passed away as well. He was black. My boy Rich Ross, who eventually comes to my trial, Rich Ross Jr., he was white. But, man, it's not even about that. It's about the street, man. It's about that life that you're living, the wild life that you're living, taking a chance with your life, man, for what? Them dudes could have tied me up for what? I didn't have no real money, 15 grand, 20 grand, half a key. All right. And what? Blow my brains out over that? Man, this dude's out here to take your life for $1,000, man. Dude's out here to take your life for $5. So if you're living that life, man, you're sitting in that spot, man, be careful. So anyway, Wody's on the ground. He's shot. You hear the police sirens coming. People are calling the police. I'm like, yo, I'm out of here. I take off. I got my car parked on the side street. All bullshit aside, man, I got a snub-nosed 357. I run out of there with the gun. But I'm still nervous. I'm still like, oh, shit, I wonder if these dudes are around. I'm even afraid to, get to my car. But I know I got to get out of here, man. I end up getting out of there. And I tell Wody, man, call me. He gets shot. He has a tattoo of Jesus on his arm. And I believe he gets shot right in between Jesus's eyes. He's on the ground, man. Screaming, man. Like, oh, I don't really know where else he's shot. I make sure I'm not shot. I get to my car, man. I take off. He calls me at like 3 in the morning. Like, hey, man. They're taking the bullet out. Man, I got to stay in the hospital, but I don't want to. He don't tell me that the police were there and all that. But, I mean, that's obvious now that I know the law. The cops always show up, man. When, you go to the hospital calls, hey, we got a gunshot victim. I guess he talks to them, whatever, right? So anyway, man, Wody gets out of the hospital and he's like, he's got some revenge stuff in him. And he's got some, man, I don't really want to sell drugs no more, but I'm broke. I'm staying with my kid's mother, not me, him. Man, I think I'm going to relax for like a month and then I'll be back. I'm like, all right, man. He relaxes for a month. But you know what? I don't stop hustling, man. It's not a wake-up call to get out of the game. It's more of, you know what, man? We got some issues with these people. So now after they shoot Wody, I'm thinking in my mind, like, man, we didn't hit them dudes. They need to know that we're for real. Not ever thinking, man, we unloaded 60 rounds on them. They came back and retaliated. Maybe we could just, let bygones be bygones. And then I called this dude, man, he used to get high, crazy ass dude, Jimmy McDonald, another person that, you know, passed away while I was in prison. You know, he was one of them dudes that got high, but would do whatever you asked him to do. He was connected to some mob guys. He was an arsonist, went to prison for arson. Just a crazy dude. I'm like, yo, man, I need you to do me a favor, man. We got to go over here and find these dudes. I found out these cats are on Locust Street. I got a gauge in this little, what was it, a Ford Escort. I'm like, yo, man, take me over there. I see these dudes standing out, man, in the middle of the street. Like on the middle of the road on Locust down by the hill. And I'm like, yo, there they are. I try to turn the gun around. Listen how crazy this is. I try to turn this gun around in the Escort. Boom, the gun goes off. I shoot a hole through this dude's ceiling of his car. And he's laughing like, ah! I turn the gun at these dudes and I shoot at them. I shoot at them, but don't hit anybody. But that's what my life was worth, right? Like if I shoot at these dudes and I hit them, I'm not never thinking about the consequences. It's 25 to life. And they're probably going to convict me. Why? Because I actually committed that crime. I mean, I didn't kill anybody, but had I had done so, my life would have been over with right there, 25 to life. Might have did 30 years on it before the parole board decides I'm going to let you out. Or I might have did 40 years, or I might have did life. So I'm shooting at these kids for Wody, right? And we're going to get into his story in a second. I shoot at these kids and they take off. They're running, they run away. Now I'm just like, man, I hope these dudes know that it's real, man. And now I'm always got a gun on me. Now I'm not going to sleep without a gun on me because I definitely got beef with these cats. So anyway, man, the kid, man, Doughboy, he's not, like I said, he's not from our side. He ends up getting arrested. He gets arrested for another robbery and a shooting, and he's in jail. And he sends a letter, man, to someone that we're mutual friends with to give to me. And in the letter, he tells me, like, yo, look, man, your man, Wody, like, you know, there's a grand jury in like 30 days, man. And pretty much, man, you know, he talked to the police at the hospital and, man, keep it in the streets, man. You know, make sure old boy don't show up, man. You know, tell him to fall back. You're like their leader, man. And, you know, he writes, I know you ain't letting dudes in your crew, you know, do shit like this and whatever. And I holler at Wody, and I'm like, damn, bro, like, what's up with this? He's like, nah, man, police came there that night, man, but I ain't going to do that, man. I ain't going to do none of that. And eventually Wody, I don't believe he goes to the kid's grand jury or anything like that. But boom, that should have been a red flag. Like, yo, man, stay away from this kid. But, you know, when we talk about the cooperation and people testifying at trial, like, don't you realize that that's what's to be expected when you're in the drug game? They've been doing it for years, right? The mob, all kinds of people. That's what's to be expected, man. When they start telling people 30, 40 years, what do you think they're going to do? What do you think the average person is going to do? You know, we can get on YouTube and talk about this person, talk about that person, but that's what a lot of people are going to do, man. You know, there's no honor among thieves, man. You're out here selling dope, robbing people, you know, tricking off with chicks and prostitutes, and you're living this corrupt life. And now what? You're going to keep this one street code? That's what it's about? That's what you're going to do? You're going to keep in line with this street code? Hell no, that's what dudes are doing, man. You know, we're thinking we're gangsters. Everybody's a gangster until the police show up, right? Then that's when the gangsters get separated, man. Who are the real street dudes living that, you know, that life that dudes are rapping about that never lived that life, right? Well, I mean, now, rappers nowadays are really living that life. So anyway, I go back, I shoot at them kids, and Wody disappears. He comes back like a month later. He's like, oh, man, I got to get some money, man. And we start hustling again. We're caught up in the game. And there's just some friction, man. You know, we had that physical confrontation. The thing with dude, man, he's like, you know, he brushed it off. And really, I didn't know the reality of it. He brushes that off like that ain't nothing. And I'm back in the game with Wody. What a dummy, right? We're hustling, but there's some animosity there, man. He's stacking up a couple dollars, and now he gets his own spot. He gets his own spot, and he comes to my spot, and he's coming over to my spot like trying to punk my workers, right? Now, make no mistake about it, man. Wody was about that business too, man. He would pop you without a question. He'd pull that pistol out on you and lay your ass down. He was from Mississippi. Crazy-ass dude, man. He was definitely a crazy dude. And he did some wild things in this case that made the police, you know, center on us, right? He's got his own spot or whatever at this point. But earlier in the case, we had a dude that worked at the corner store, man. He ends up, Arab dude, Abdul Alamri. He ends up, you know, hanging out with the prostitutes out there, starts getting high. They kick him out of the store. He's got nowhere to go. So what do you think he's doing? He's living at the spot, man. You know, when we had a spot, you can read on the thumbnail, you know, we had several drug houses at one time. And we would rent these apartments and let, you know, the chicks that are homeless and out there, you know, living and prostituting, we'd let them live there. As long as you spent your money here, you could live here. This is your room. We had a chick named Kathy, and Kathy would rent all the apartments in her name, you know, and The case is over with, so no one can get in trouble, right? The statute of limitations is long over with. She would rent the houses, man, and she would recruit prostitutes to live in each of the rooms, man. 2 in this room, 2 in that room, 2 in that room. We get a 3-bedroom, and they're bringing in constant money. They're catching licks. They're bringing in their licks. That's where the constant money was at. So anyway, man, part of this case, you know, Wody had fell asleep in a Lamry, ends up stealing like $100 worth of dope from him, man. Just $100. Reaches in his pants while he's sleeping and takes it. Wody wakes up the next morning like, yo, man, this dude robbed me. I'm about to do something to him, Chad. I'm telling you, man. And I know that Wody's probably going to do something to him. He finds him and, you know, he pours some stuff on him and lights his legs on fire. They call me. I come there. I take him to the hospital. And I'm like, yo, bro, you're getting out of control, man. And that was at the point where I was kind of like, I started to worry about him, man, that he could be plotting on me too, right? I did start to worry about that at that point. Then, like I said, he ends up getting his own spot. He's over there trying to punk my workers. I go over there, man, and I pull out on him. Like, yo, what's up? What's up? And he's like, man, I'm just trying to come over here and hustle, man, whatever. And he's like, man, I'm gone, Chad, man, I'm gone. He frees up because I got the up on him. Not that he's a sucker. I just had the up on him. That's all. And our relationship sours at that point. He comes back later that night and he pistol whips my worker, this kid, Phil Bianchi. Phil's working the spot, man. He's another young kid that he's living like what the shit he sees in movies. He thinks this shit's cool. He glorifies me and glamorizes me like I'm his idol for all the wrong reasons. I ain't nobody's idol at that time, man. I'm a loser, man, for real. I'm a dude heading to prison for 40 years and never even realizes it. I'm a dumbass, man. I'm a dummy. I'm not the dude you're supposed to follow. I'm not some dude to look up to. I'm an idiot. So anyway, you know, they go over there. They pistol whip Phil, man. They pistol whip Phil. I know where their spot's at. They're a few blocks away on Massey Street. We go over there with the gauge, man. And once again, we got Jimmy McDonald. And we go over there and we unload on their house. Boom, 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 boom. This is what it's really all about. This is our life, man. This is our life. And the life that we're living, man, we're thinking that we got to be the toughest dudes around. We're living a life never thinking about the consequences, man. Never thinking that, yo, man, this could end up with a life sentence. We never think any of that stuff. We never, ever think about that. We unload on them, man. And, you know, the bigger picture about this is Wody and my sister are having a relationship. I never know any of this shit. None of this. I never know any of this stuff. This is all behind the scenes. And my sister ends up having a baby with Wody right after I go to prison, man. They have a kid after I'm already in prison. But I never knew that there was a relationship going on at that time. So anyway, man, we unload on him and it's pretty much, I don't know why it ends or how it really ends, but you know, like we mean business, you mean business, man, stay over there. We're going to stay over here, man. Leave us alone. So anyway, man, we're rocking that spot. And now things are, I'm making money, right? And now I open up a pizza shop. I got a home improvement company. I'm going to work there in the day. And if you met me on that level, you don't even know I'm a drug dealer. I already got the spots rocking, man. I put my boy Rich Ross in a position where now he knows the connect. He cops. He just tells me what he's doing, man. Just flip that, man. I got you. And he's got the money. Yo, come over here, man. I got the profit, man. Come over and get it. Every day I'm over there. I'm just collecting money and going to work and living my life with Jen, right? Thinking I'm living this good life, man. Nice place. And talking about getting married, talking about having a life with her. And you know what happens next. One night, Rich calls me. He's like, hey, man, I can't get a hold of old boy. I'm like, all right, man, I got you. And I go over there and I pick Rich up. I call him. I go to the dude's house, the Connect. Go to the Connect's house, looking for him. He's not there. I end up getting a hold of him, man. We go over there. We buy some stuff. I'm leaving. Rich has got it in his hand. And we get pulled over, right? I get blocked in. Boop, boop, boop. All these cop cars, they block us in. But I don't know that they're cop cars. They're undercover cars. And I see a black dude jump out of a vehicle with a gun. I'm like, damn, they're about to rob me. I'm thinking I'm going to take off. And that's when the police show, woo, 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 with the police lights. They lay me down in the street. I had just left my pizza shop. I had a pizza shop in the city. They lay me down in the street, man. Gunpoint, out in the snow, wet-ass snow. And I know it's over with, man. At first, I think it's that I'm getting robbed, that I'm about to get kidnapped. But it's the police, man. And as crazy as this sounds, I was thankful in the moment that it was the cops, man. That it wasn't nobody trying to rob me. Because if you're trying to rob me and kidnap me, you're probably going to blow my brains out, man. Because I'm doing all right at this time, man. I'm doing all right. Not that I'm glamorizing it, but I'm definitely financially okay. I'm at a point in my life that I never in my life thought I'd be okay financially, but I'm there. I'm financially okay. Got a couple businesses going, sitting on a couple $100,000, sitting on some drugs, and just just a wild life, man. Just a wild life. And they lay me down in the street, and then you know how they do it. They cuff you up. Rich ends up jumping out of the car. They don't find nothing. We get down to the public safety building, and later on I would find out, through the case that, they search, they find some stuff, and Rich kind of tells them, like, where he threw it and all of that good shit, right? He ends up working out a deal. He testifies, and he ends up with 7 or 8 years in the end. Wody ends up with 25 years, gets it reduced to 12 and a half. But that's not the end of the story, is it, Chad? That's it? That's how your life ends? That's the story? Nah, man, this is the bigger picture. This is the message that you need to understand. When the federal government comes and they get you and they take you downtown, all that drug dealer shit and all that tough guy shit and all that, shooting people and pulling the trigger and keeping a gun on you, all that shit goes out the window, man. All that, all the shit you heard in them rap songs and, all the shit that you've seen in the movies, that shit's all out the window, man. Now it's reality. They come to Wody and they tell him, hey, man, check this out, right? Your mandatory minimum's 10. But you got a prior drug felony. So now your mandatory minimum on the drugs is 20. Then you got a 924C. So now your mandatory minimum is 25, right? Oh, and then there's a second 924C that we're going to charge you with. Now your mandatory minimum is 50. Your mandatory minimum is 50. And let me explain this to you, Mr. Wody. You got a mandatory minimum of 50, but it could go all the way up to life. You could die in prison, man. You could die in prison. So what do you want to do, man? We want your help. And if you help us, we're going to do you a favor. And our favor is going to be, we're going to charge you with the 851. So your mandatory minimum, it's going to be 20. And then we're going to give you 5 years for that first gun because we're going to charge you with that 924C. And we'll forget about that other 924C. We'll just throw that away. We'll pretend that that doesn't exist. And we're going to start you out at 25 years. We're doing you a favor, man, by offering you 25 years. A favor? And then what we're going to do is, man, if you help us out, we're going to knock that 25 pretty much in half. This judge that you have, he usually goes in half when you help out. What decision do you think this kid's going to make? Now, make no mistake about it, man. You can call him what you want, but he was a gangster in the street, man. He's unloaded on some people, man. He's been in a position where he could have ended up with a 25 to life. You know what decision he makes. Same thing with my boy, man, Richard Ross, like my cousin, man. And he makes the decision that he feels is best for him. And now I'm going to tell you this, I don't live a street life. It's not the life that I live. But what are you supposed to think, right? In the beginning, you're mad. You guys seen me interview Donald Molinari, who really started the whole case, right? Like he wore the recorder on me and all of that. And I forgave that kid, man, because he didn't make the decisions to sell drugs. I did. I made those decisions to put myself in a position where, the people that I feel are my friends have to do what they have to do because they don't want to go to prison for the rest of their lives, right? So I could hate these dudes, which I did. I hated them for a long time. But it's to be expected. The Titanic was going down. They're going to jump on it with me and go? No, of course not. Most people don't. Most people don't. Most people don't really live that shit that they rap about. Most people don't live that life that they watch in the movies. Most people don't live that life that they talk about in the street. And what's it like, man, when you're going to trial? You're guilty. You try to convince yourself that you're going to beat them on this charge and that charge. They might find me guilty on this one, but this one I'm going to beat them on. Just knew I was going to beat them on the 924C counts. I've never been in the houses. I've never been there when the guns were seized. Then they got this thing called constructive possession. And they tell the jury, man, because I had control over the house, because these dudes work for me, that I'm guilty of possessing the weapons that they have. And they convict me of that shit. And I can tell you, man, when the jury returns, right, young man? Because you're watching right now, right? You're getting some money, too. You might only be 20 years old, 22, but you're getting some real money. You're the man out there, big chain on, nice car. Damn, I thought I had my necklace on. You're out there getting that big money right now, man. You're the man right now. But let me tell you, man, when that verdict comes back, you're the only person there because you're the only person that has to serve the time. When that verdict comes back, man, it's like one of the most loneliest times of my life. They said I was guilty. I knew that my mandatory minimum was 40 years. And then they do a PSR, probation report, right? And that comes back life for the drugs plus 30 years, 5 for the first 924C and 25 for the second. And then I'm like, wow, man, I'm about to get a life sentence, man. I was out 14 months. I'm about to get a life sentence because I thought I was a gangster in the street. And then I go for sentencing, and my lawyer says, I don't think he's going to give you life, but he's probably going to give you 60 years. I hire this lawyer out of Buffalo. He tells me, man, they're going to give you 60 years today, man. You know, but we're going to appeal it and try to hang in there, man. Keep your head up, man. You know, things will work out. Man, 60 years, oh, that's life. I'll never make it out anyway, even with 60. And I go in front of the judge, and he sentences me, and he says something to the effect of, I'm going to act in a moment of compassion in this case for your mother. Not really for you, but for your mother. And I'm going to give you the mandatory minimum of 40 years. And he sentences me to 40 years. What do you think that feels like, man, when you go back into the holding cell at the federal building? You just got sentenced to 40 years. It's 5 o'clock at night, and you're waiting to get taken back to the jail. And you heard me do the interview with the cop that worked at the jail for those that tuned in. And I go back there, man, it's the most loneliest feeling in the world. It's a feeling that all the money in the world, you know, you could live 20 years with all the money in the world. I'd give it all back to not feel what I felt in my stomach that day. And then I leave my city, man. Now it's time to go, right? I leave my city for the last time, what I think is the last time. I'll never see this city again. And in my distorted mind, it's like I love this city. I love this city where I polluted it, man. I drive right through my neighborhood on my way to the prison that I'm on my way to, or Youngstown, Ohio, wherever I was going that day. You know, the marshals, I think I might have been in the federal detention center. And I look around after I'm getting sentenced, and I'm like, this is it, man. I'll never see this shit again. And you start to reflect on your life, right? I start to think about when I was a little kid and walking down Lyle Avenue with my mom. Those were the times when I didn't have a dad, right? When it was just me and my mom. My mom, you know, trying to work a job. Then she becomes a single mother on welfare. It's just me and her in this world. We're walking to the grocery store with this little bullshit ass cart when I'm 4 or 5 years old. So she can go spend her food stamps so we can have some food. I don't know what food stamps are back then. And I remember thinking like, dang, I used to walk down the street with my mama. Pass by my neighborhood that I polluted. Pass by the house, right, that I used to sell dope at. And I remember this. When I got convicted, I went to Batavia. When I got sentenced, I was Youngstown, Ohio. That's where they were housing us at because some dudes had just escaped from the county. They're housing us in Youngstown, Ohio. And the cops over there were kind of like dudes that wore the street clothes in there, and they didn't really give a shit, man. They were just like regular dudes that were working a construction job, and that shit was too hard, and they ended up getting a job at this jail that just opened. And I asked them, hey, man, drive me down this road right here, man. Just got 40 years, man. Never getting, I want to see my city, man. And they did. They drove me, and I asked them to drive me down there, man. And that's how it went that day. They drove me, and I look at the house, man. I've got 40 years for this house, and I got 40 years for that house. You know, I was a white drug dealer in my city and thought I was the man, right? I was the man over there. All bullshit aside. You know, I kind of controlled that area, man. And like I said before, my father was a pretty well-known drug addict, right? There were times with my father where he robbed one of my spots, and I got to put my hands on my dad. Ain't that crazy? Put my hands on my dad. And I remember just driving down Lyle Avenue, man, before we got on the highway. I said, this is it, man. This is what my life is like. That was me paving my way for a 40-year sentence and never realized it, right? Really, man, petty-ass drug dealer who you think you're coming up, what, because you're copping a brick at a time and bagging it up? You're copping a brick and cooking up, you know, a Big 8 at a time. You bust that off, and then you chop some more off, and you cook that up. You're in the microwave with the Pyrex, or you're on the stove, and you're adding a baking soda. Every time you add a little baking soda, man, you're just putting some more years on your life. Yeah, I'm getting ready to get this 40 years, man. Here it is. Boom. Put some soda on that. Stir that shit up, man. Put the ice in there, man. Harden that shit up. I didn't used to whip my shit either. Make sure my shit was good, right? Good for what? Good so I could spend the rest of my life in prison. And then I go off to prison. My first prison's Big Sandy, right? That's my first real prison. I go off to Big Sandy. And eventually I would get out. But it would take 18 years to get out of prison. It would take, some people might not want to hear this, it would take President Trump changing the law under the First Step Act and saying, hey, these 924Cs, Nah, you can't get 25 years for the second one. If it's all in the same indictment, we're going to fix that. And it took many years of me being an asshole in prison and being an idiot and running around like a tough guy in there too. Still didn't learn my lesson. Still blaming everybody else. I was still blaming everybody else. It was the judge's fault that I got 40 years. It was them, it was Wodey's fault that I got 40 years and Rich Ross. And it wasn't none of their faults, man. It was my fault. I made the choices to sell drugs, man. I made the choices to pollute my neighborhood. I made the choices to make sure little kids didn't have Christmases. I made it possible for, mothers to be out prostituting so that they could get high. I made all that shit possible. And all my friends from Kathy on down the line, every single person in that case, except for my boy E, worked something out. They worked out some kind of deal, man. They worked out some kind of deal. Then sometimes you're shocked when you read the statements, right? Man, that person gave us that. Of course they did, man. They're a drug addict, man. Of course they did. I mean, they're trying to get out and get high. Yeah, they got caught with credit cards. Of course they did. So that's the story, man. I mean, it's up to you, man. You're in the driver's seat. No one, your mother, your father, no one can dictate where you drive your car, man. You can drive your car to prison, or you can drive your car to prosperity, man. And if you're a hustler, don't ever forget this, man. If you could sell dope, you could sell anything, man. It's one of the hardest jobs in the world, man. You might not think so in hindsight right now, right? But think about, man, when you're sitting in the spot, or think about, man, when these people rob you, or think about, man, you got to duck the police, or think about, yo, man, you got to meet this connect over here and how scared you are when you're driving back with it. Think about all those things. This is a hard job, man. If you could sell dope, you could sell anything, man. There's all kinds of ways to get money out here. Legally. You don't have to get it the wrong way. Getting it the wrong way, man, we all think, man, we're smarter than the cops. And, man, they got technology that'll blow your mind. They wiretap you, you don't even know. They catch someone else, man. They're wiretapping them, and you happen to call that person. Now they're like, man, who is this? They check you out. You got a prior. Yeah, you're definitely in the game. Let's latch on to this dude and watch him. Oh, shit, okay, we got him too now. I've seen dudes, man, that had a 1-year conspiracy. Someone gets out of prison, and they call them, and they hook up with them. They're in a conspiracy for 2 weeks. Now they're facing life. I got another kid, man, Spanish kid that I was in Raybrook with, right, from my city. And, I was in this class with him at parole, this rehabilitation class that they wanted us to take, the parole officer and probation officers. I'm in that class with him. He's working a job, a little bit arrogant, was arrogant in prison. Was killing him. I think he did like 12 years on a 15-year case. He gets out, man. He calls me like a month ago. Yo, man, I need to get in contact with Chad. He gets in contact with me. And they find, I think, a key or two in his trunk at his job. And now he's charged in the state. And I think they just brought him over to federal court, and they 851'd him. Yeah, they changed the 851 law, right? It's not life anymore if you have 2 priors. Now it's only 25. 25, but you're 45 years old. So now they're going to 851 the kid, man. And his mandatory minimum is going to be 25. 2 priors. If he has 1 prior, his mandatory minimum is no longer 20, it's 15. Could you handle 15 at the age of 45? Man, this is the 3rd lap of your life, man. How many laps are there? 4 laps? 20, 40, 60, 80? You're in the 3rd lap of your life, man. And you're going to spend it in prison. And now you get out at 60 with nothing. What are you going to do? Go back to the game? Go back to the game that's going to be completely changed? And take one last shot at it, man, at 60. And now if they get you now, your life's over with. You'll spend the rest of your life in prison. Think about it, man. Big decisions. Let your next choice be your best choice, man. Blood on the Razor Wire TV. I hope you like this one. With respect, until tomorrow, we're out.